and welcome to the second edition of the Meet Our Makers subseries, We Meet Again, where I circle back with guests that I have had on the show previously on the main series, kind of to check in, talk about a new project, and maybe just dive a little deeper, a little more quickly. In this second episode, we circle back with Orenda Fink of Azure. Now, the last time I had Orenda on was with her Azure partner, Maria Taylor, and we were talking about their most recent record, Remedy. That was a few years ago now, but I wanted to invite Orenda back because she just released a new project last year that I really wanted to get into with her. Last year, Orenda released her debut memoir, The Witch's Daughter, in which she recounts the years and years of what she wound up discovering as narcissistic abuse at the hands of her mother. It was something she suffered through childhood, through adolescence, up through adulthood, almost up to current day. And it charts her journey towards realization, acceptance, and kind of the moves she had to make to survive and move on in her current day life. And there are a lot of details. The memoir is unflinching, it is honest, it is blunt, it is remarkably candid. And in this chat, Orenda is just about as remarkably candid, for which I'm very appreciative. I wasn't sure how much of an open book she would be about this, and she absolutely was. So consider this a bit of a content warning. There is some pretty direct conversation around emotional abuse, narcissistic abuse, especially at the hands of a parent. So, just so you know, that is coming down the pipe. But I want to thank Orenda for diving so deep with such candor, such grace, and such honesty, such openness as she does here. And even if you're not a fan of Azure, or even if you don't know who they are, I highly suggest you pick up The Witch's Daughter and give it a read. So thank you for listening. Thank you for exploring this sort of mini-series, offshoot, sub-series, whatever the hell it's called now, with me. So here is me meeting Orenda Fink again.
There's a dust storm, pretty crazy dust storm occurring here right now. But
Jeez.
I'm going to be watching it while we're talking.
I hope it doesn't get too severe, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I've never seen one. Are they cool to watch?
Well, okay, I should just say it's a windstorm, which then
but there's
creates,
dust.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I guess we should maybe specify for those who don't know, you live in the desert. So
yes,
there's a lot of dirt, there's a lot of dust.
There is, and there's a lot of wind.
Yes.
Know.
Well, dust storm or not, I am so happy that you are here. Thank you for coming to hang out again for a little while.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah, I just I don't know. It's not like I have 6,000 episodes of Meet Our Makers or anything, but I just I was like, there are these people whose work I follow and who release new interesting things. And, I was like, I don't know if it's gauche or weird to interview them again. But I was like, why not? So here we are. So the occasion of my inviting you was, of course, your book that just came out in August called The Witch's Daughter. So how has it been for you since publishing a memoir? I mean, that's so different than publishing a record or an essay or something. You published an entire memoir. How has it gone, do you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right. I think it's almost like this wouldn't be the same interview that we would have about a record. So I think it is kind of makes sense to do a different one. Mm-hmm. It's been really interesting. It's been a wild ride. It has calmed down now, so it kind of feels like that little bit like, oh, what was that? But with the book, there's so much work that goes into it, and of course there is for records too. But this is just on a completely different level. Mm-hmm. Shout out to writers out there, because I'm like, wow, I had no idea. This is what you go through. But also I think that the nature of the book too certainly, added to the weight
Hmm.
and took its toll because, it centers around childhood trauma and going no contact with my parents. And,
Hmm.
uh, my music has always been very confessional, and very honest, but this is to a, very different degree.
Right.
Because in songs, you only have about 3 minutes to
Hmm.
kind of say what you want to say. So it really is poetry, or can be, the lyrics. But this was more, this is 80,000 words. This is going beyond that and diving very deeply, microscopically into the things that I talked about metaphorically in the songs.
Right.
So,
Yeah, because I remember specifically there's I listened to the audiobook, I should say. I'm not the stuffiest of bibliophiles. I did not read the book. I listened to the book. Um, but because of that, I don't know if this exists in the print copy, but I was able to hear the snippets of songs that are interwoven, um, into the book. And there's that one moment where you cut to Easter Island off your first record, Invisible Ones. And like that's a perfect example of what you were just talking about because that song, it's actually so much more literal than I thought.
mhm.
But because of how we approach music as listeners and music fans and lyricism, I was like, oh, I don't really know what this is about. It must be some kind of, poetic metaphor, but it's that poeticization of something that is actually super concrete. Um, but it comes after we get the information from your memoir, and it just like, oh, that's what really happened. So it's those facts, it's like you had more space and like you say, it's more just direct, I guess.
Yeah, that is, interesting, kind of funny in its own sad way that life with my mother was so insane and, wild that it feels like a metaphor, but no, these things like actually happened.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, but I think that's very much like my life with her.
Hmm.
Um, that because she was an artist too,
Hmm.
and I think that's how she expressed her pain was through these very demonstrative, symbolic, experiences. And in some ways, that's beautiful. But when you're experiencing it as the child of someone who has to, who number one is stuck in their pain, number two has to demonstrate it in these kind of scary, wild ways. That's something that I worked through, or maybe tried to work through in the book as well.
Hmm. Yeah. And so I was trying to sort of place when you might have finished this book. So just before you tell me, because uh, you have the sort of like the 4 or 5 sort of chapters that are in the sort of present day, right? And they kind of are the prefaces to each section.
Hmm.
And so we begin, I think I'm right in saying we began around like COVID was already sort of happening. Um, but then because we're hearing about the potential of your parents to move to the desert with you and they were nervous and all that stuff. But then by the end, we're out of that, aren't we? Or like when do we actually end? Like where are we when we're at the close of the book?
We're, I believe it was 2022
Okay.
would have been the close of the book.
Okay. So how did you I guess a better way to ask this question would be sort of like what parts came first to you? Were those interstitial moments of the present day, were those later, were those earlier, or did it all kind of come as a one piece kind of thing?
No, I've been working on the book for a really long time,
Mm,
and I would say earnestly about 8 years.
okay.
And when I first started, it was after my heart surgery.
Hmm.
And well, okay, let me back it up a little bit. I really first started writing, when Wilson died, when my dog died.
Hmm.
And I wrote the record Blue Dream, but I
Right.
also started writing some memoir-ish material around that experience, with losing him and and kind of I had an existential crisis, and I had started going to a Jungian analyst to analyze my dreams. So I was writing all of that down, and I gave about 40 pages to a writer friend of mine named Timothy Shafford. And he read it and he was like, well, over martinis, he's like, I hate to tell you this, but this book's about your mother. And there was like one paragraph about my mom,
Yeah. And you're like, no, no, no. It's about my dog. See?
Exactly. And I was like, well, I don't want to write that. And I kind of put it on a shelf.
Hmm.
And then, many years later, I had the heart surgery. And at that point, I was like, okay, maybe I do want to look into my life more deeply. And that does mean my childhood and my relationship with my mother. And so I started writing really just kind of vignettes, memory pieces,
Hmm.
what I remembered from my childhood, which, ended up being the basis of the book. So that stuff I had kind of pre-written, of course, it went through many iterations, and then I thought I had a book and, gave it to my agent. And the response to that was kind of like, what is this? you know, and that it was just kind of very dark and meandering and,
Hmm.
it wasn't quite clear. And then I had a friend tell me that as well. And I realized, okay, maybe I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
And I put it down for years. And then when everything, the shit hit the fan with my sister moving in with my parents,
Yeah.
it was all so horrific that I had in the midst of that just a flash. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the performer or the artist or just the communicator in me, all of a sudden I said, I know what this book's about now.
Hmm.
And I started writing in real time while this stuff was going on. So the last, let's say, quarter of the book,
Yeah.
I was writing it while it was happening. I didn't know what was going to happen the next day.
Right.
So something would happen and I would write it. And then something would happen and I would write it. And till it got to the end where we went no contact. And then I, basically was kind of like the end.
Hmm.
And I sent it to my agent and I said, I'm never picking this up again. I'm never working on this again. So this is it.
Yeah.
And she sold it 1 month later.
Oh, so that was it. That was it.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, it was kind of wild. Basically, I mean, I I just realized that all those memories led up to one thing,
Yeah.
which was that my mother was deeply mentally ill, that I and my sisters were, survivors of narcissistic abuse,
Hmm.
and that I needed to go no contact. And I
Hmm.
was like, that's the story.
Yeah. Because it does all lead there. And it's not inherently something that, it's not like on page one you say, hey, here's the story of how I went no contact with my parents, but it does all fit into that trail. It all leads to that moment. Um, because like you say, the stuff when your sister Christine moves it back in with them, it's like that was such a turning point um in everyone's narrative, I think. Um, so I can totally see why that would be sort of the engine that gets you to go, oh, okay, now I see what this is.
Yeah. And, it's interesting that you say that because, you're so blind when you're in
Hmm.
it.
Right.
And here, my sister and I are coming at this of we're going to save mom. You
Right.
know, we finally figured it out and you're doing this and I'm going to be there to help you. And what ended up happening was we finally remembered who mom was,
Hmm.
what we had maybe repressed or put away as adults because we had set up so many boundaries. It was like that monster in my mother came alive once my sister moved back in.
Hmm.
And I think that just, maybe I say that in so many ways in the book, but it kind of feels even more real to me now,
Hmm.
that was really what was happening. We were like, oh, this is really bad.
Yeah.
you know. Um, and yeah, I mean, I almost felt like my sister was going to die if she stayed.
That's what it reads like. It reads almost like a horror story. Um,
Well, Jeremy, this is something that's been really profound for me,
mhm,
is that I've gotten two direct messages from readers
mhm.
who have said, I cried and I cheered when your sister left because my sister died. My sister stayed and died.
Yeah.
And I cried both times I got those messages because I
Yeah.
was like, I wasn't wrong. You know,
Right.
it sounds like you said, yeah, like a horror movie. Like, am I dramatizing this? But I
Right.
think the simple fact is that no, this type of abuse can actually, break someone and kill them.
Yeah, for sure. And it's something that goes unseen a lot of the time because like even as we come to learn more about your uncle who becomes quite a big character late in the book, um, a lot of what was happening, what you guys were experiencing within the home, he was unaware of, or at least not fully aware of. And that is the truth, I think, for a lot of these people too. Probably some of the people reaching out to you, some of the people reading the book, just sort of like realizing that they're not the only ones, that this is the reality, and that a lot of people don't realize that it's going on, and that it is not probably terribly uncommon. I mean, there's varying levels of it, but I'm sure it's not terribly uncommon, and it's an experience that people don't probably share a lot.
It's true. And, something that I've realized too is that I didn't know. So how was he going to know?
Right.
My sister didn't know. And my sister and I, we still struggle every day. I mean, we love them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is what it's like to be in a cult.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so easy to look at people who join cults and be like, "Oh, well, just walk away. How could you stay in something like this?" But the truth is that narcissistic abuse is so effective. It changes your brain.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of renders you powerless and these really insidious and hard to explain ways if you haven't been in it. And so imagine if it's your mother,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
I know. And I think of like people I know who have like strained parental relationships, and then it starts to make you wonder, is it just strained? Is there more there? Because yeah, you don't always see it for what it is until you're so deep into it or on the other side of it. And you guys, if what you're saying, if I'm understanding what you're saying right, then that moment when she was in the house, when Christine moved back into the house, that sort of unlocked all this understanding about your mother and your parents and your home life in general that maybe you had not quite seen in that light before.
Yes. I mean, it started coming up for me and I think her in our own ways.
Hmm.
But it was when I went to visit and saw how messed up everything was there.
Yeah.
That's really where it for me it turned, and I think that's where in the book, it's like it's a couple of people, including my husband, are like, I can't believe you put that in there. That when I said I fantasized about poisoning my
Right.
mother,
Right.
it's like I can't believe you put that in the book, and I was like, well, this book is about being honest.
Yeah.
It's not about trying to make me look good.
No, and it's also not about trying to really almost protect anyone, including yourself. It's like here's the blunt reality of what this experience was like, and I did have that experience.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, are you talking about the moment when you went to visit and she was saying your mother was saying things about your sister's husband?
Yeah, and
That trip?
that trip, yes,
Okay.
where she kind of was literally imitating, a rabid,
Yeah.
snarling dog.
Yeah.
Um, and I knew it really was, it wasn't about what she was saying about my sister's husband. It was the moment that my heart just sank and was like, this is going to end really badly.
Yeah.
And look what have we done?
Right. Right.
Um, we got to get out of this. and I
Yeah.
felt responsible. And so that was kind of really the real moment was
Yeah.
my mother's going to, I don't know what I didn't, I don't know what would have happened if they had stayed, but
Right.
there was something like primal in me that was like, they got to get out of here.
Yeah. And then, so I guess, okay, so to back up a little bit, for those who have not read the book yet or have not finished the book yet, we're trying not to spoil too much, but at the same time, read the book. Um, but this had been going on in retrospect, when you look back, this had been going on to some degree for as long as you could remember. I mean, is that fair to say?
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of the early memories in the book are quite young childhood. I mean, Christine's not even around, she's not even born yet for the first few chapters.
Hmm.
Um, and yet it is kind of remarkable in a sense how close to a quote unquote normalcy you were able to sort of get for yourself. I'm thinking specifically about I didn't know that you were valedictorian, for example. Um, and so this idea that there's all this stuff going on and all this chaos. And by that point, I think your older sister had already sort of started down her path. Um, and then you were able to keep up this sort of appearance, I mean, is that, was that something that was a conscious effort on your part to sort of put out this sort of image of yourself when you were younger? Like, were you trying to do that, or was it just sort of your natural like knee jerk response? Like, okay, this is happening, so I have to go this way.
I think a little of column A and a little column B.
Mm,
I do think it's in my nature to kind of be in look towards achievements,
mm,
as a way to kind of move forward in the world and seek validation. But so that is how, I was like, this is my ticket out,
right.
was through achievements, because I knew that that was kind of what I was geared towards doing.
Yeah.
And, it could have been doctor, it could have been a lawyer, it ended up being music. Um, but I think I really would have made anything work for me that was
Hmm.
offered. Um, and so part of that was, yeah, presenting as someone who has it all together,
Hmm.
someone you want to be friends with, someone you want to hire, trust, uh, be around. I don't know. It's kind of weird when you look back at your life. I mean, I work in Jungian coaching now. I'm a
Hmm.
Jungian coach. And so I think about persona versus the soul a lot. And it is
Mm,
a little bit of both,
hmm.
I mean, it's not that I'm not this person. I am this person, but trauma can do two things. It can pull you away from your, true essence, or it can kind of push you further into a persona that all of a sudden you kind of becomes rigid, and
Hmm.
controlling. And I certainly have fallen into that in different times of my life. Like, yeah, the need to achieve or be good,
Yeah.
or survive has kind of taken over. Just be yourself. Take it's okay to fail. It's okay to not have it all together.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, anyways, I digress.
I love digressions. I don't care.
It was a mechanism, yeah, to get
Yeah.
out for sure.
And it's interesting too because I work in education, so I see teenagers every single day of my life, and it is often the case that students will especially work towards achievements, whether it's clubs or sports or academics, and it is often to impress their parents or like to stay out of trouble with their parents. But I feel like for you, it wasn't those because I mean, did you ever think it was going to be like your ticket back into her like good graces, or was that never a goal from that?
Oh, oh no. I mean, with
Right.
my mother, I think she would have preferred my failure,
Okay.
and not in any kind of overtly, nefarious way, but I
Right.
think that my achievement made her feel separate from me.
Okay.
Um, I think she was like, who is this creature I gave birth to,
Right.
that's
Right.
running around like Tracy Flick from Election. When she's a kind of
Yeah.
a, chain smoking witch alcoholic, like, um,
Yeah.
so in some ways, unspoken, it was almost like a rebellion
Hmm.
against my mother instead of trying to win her graces.
Yeah.
At the beginning, it was winning her graces before I understood. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right. Um, I'm curious because with memoirs, I haven't spoken to as many writers of memoirs or writers of books as I would have, I would love to. So I'm curious then with writing this memoir. I mean, I know at the beginning of the book, there's the standard preface, saying that some names and places have been changed to protect anonymity, but there are people who are so intrinsically tied to your story that you can't help but, name them and identify them. Were you ever at all scared of them reading this?
Which people?
I know there's so many. I guess we'll start here. I mean, were there people who are in this book that you wanted approval from on the manuscript or without whom you wouldn't have published it?
Yes, and I did get approval from those people.
Okay. So,
So
because like your sister is so important to this book. Um, so I would imagine that she had read it long before anyone else had, and that she had given her approval for you to kind of share the details of her story. Because it is her story through your lens, but still she factors quite heavily, especially in the second half.
yes, and in fact, not only did she give approval, she was the first editor.
Mm,
She's a wonderful editor, and she edited the book, which was really, a,
it's kind
a
of trippy.
kind of trippy. Is meta, and God
Yeah.
bless her. I mean, probably a little abusive of me to even ask, but at that point, maybe that was selfish of me. I kind of wanted her involved, but probably
Hmm.
was not the most healthy thing. But it did give us a chance to kind of look over it really, really intensely. We talked about some memories that we differed on recollections, and kind of came to like I say, kind of came to a consensus of
Hmm.
what the truth was. And she can, she was like, oh, and you forgot about this,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
um, and uh, and then also, um, yeah, I mean, basically, I would not have, I would, she's the only one I say I definitely would not have published it without her
Yeah.
permission. Sorry.
Yeah.
Um,
That makes sense.
yeah, and she lives in the desert now.
Yeah, she's near you,
Hmm.
nearer. Okay.
Hmm.
That's good. Because yeah,
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember. She was planning that towards the end of the book. I don't think it had happened yet.
yeah, she
Right.
was just
Okay.
coming out to visit.
Right, right. Um, is she still with the same husband, the same man?
Yes.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
good. That makes me happy.
I know.
Because he said you make him, I mean, obviously we're chuckling, but like the scene that we were talking about earlier with the two of them staying at the house is one of the most intense sequences in the book.
Mm.
That's why I say it feels like a horror movie. There's a breathless quality to it. There's such attention to those scenes. And during them, despite that, you make it quite clear that, this man is none of the things that your mother was proclaiming him to be, and in fact is like such a decent man. So that makes me happy that they're there in the desert with you. That makes me happy.
Yeah, me
Um,
too.
one of the one of the more heartbreaking moments for me, it's a story about you and your specific perspective of your mother and being raised by her and having her in your life from childhood through very recent adulthood. But one of the most heartbreaking parts for me was the story of following your father.
Mhm.
Um, and I like how much you included of that because I think it would have been easy to write a novel or write a memoir simply about her, but they're so tied together, and it really feels like a loss at towards the end. When because there's like a moment or two where you kind of feel as the reader you feel, oh, okay, he's gone now. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, was that, I mean, of course, the whole book was probably tricky to write, but like, how how do you reconcile with that? Because throughout the book, throughout your lives then, but throughout the book, you know, he was a little passive. You know, he is someone who is always the peacemaker. You know, he's the one who you even say in the book, you know, he's always the one who asks you to apologize and to just make peace and like we'll move on. But then towards the end, he stops doing that. And you make this really interesting assessment of the situation that I'm going to paraphrase. But basically, that he sort of ultimately fully sides with her as a sacrifice for you guys. Do you believe that that's what happened when he sort of fully went over to her side of things?
Oh God, just I haven't read the book in a while, so like that I was like, I mean, it's triggering.
I'm sorry. I'm
No, it's
sorry.
fine. I'm like actually crying a little bit.
Oh no.
Because that is no, it's fine. It's that it is the most painful part is my father and losing
Hmm.
him. And when you asked that question, I think what made me tear up was when I wrote that. I think yeah, I said something like maybe his soul was looking out for us too, you
Yeah.
know, by going down with the ship.
Yeah. That's what it
And
was.
it was I kind of feel like I tacked that on in a
Hmm.
later edit, um, almost as like just trying to find the good in it somehow.
Hmm.
You know, do I really believe that? I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I think that in reality, um, he, you know, this is why it's so important to understand the dynamics
Hmm.
of this of the disorder, the personality disorder, and the codependent, which my father is extremely codependent with
Hmm.
my mother, and you know, and so is I, you know, and so is Christine. Um, but my father was, you know, really, really dangerously codependent with her, and I think that you know more than like him kind of making that sacrifice for us, even though I guess I'm kind of saying that that's ultimately how it played out because that was how we were able to walk away.
Hmm.
Um, is that I think he just realized that there's no turning back.
Yeah.
Like there's no fixing this.
Yeah.
It finally got to that point, and it could have been because, you know, earlier I had said, you know, I think she's got borderline personality disorder. You know, I think it all kind of started leading to this point
Hmm.
without us knowing it.
Yeah. And it's interesting that it led there relatively swiftly, it feels like in the book, after you revealed that opinion of her to your father. And he sort of agreed, you know, he was like, well, that makes sense or something like that. Um, and then not too long after like decades of being the more passive, the sort of quieter codependent, kind of ramped up, and then quite quickly was kind of gone. And it was interesting. It's interesting timing.
It is interesting timing. And again, it's like, yeah, it's hard to know. Like, what, yeah, in, you know, it might be his dementia.
Yeah, yeah, that is something that again, for those who don't know, that is something that comes up a lot in the book because it's something that, theoretically he was diagnosed with by doctors, and your mother proclaimed was so bad, but then every time you and Christine spoke with him, you didn't see any of it.
No.
But maybe that's how it manifested.
Well, you know, and maybe that's just getting old too. You know,
Hmm.
it's like that he didn't have the faculties to negotiate, to navigate the
Yeah,
madness anymore. And
yeah,
so, you know, in that case, well, he's just going to pick a side. It's certainly going to be my mom's.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I think there just seemed to be no way out of it. And so
Hmm.
that's what happened.
Yeah. Um, Now, being no contact with either of them, as you say, as you are, and as you say, you're going to be or starting to be at the end of the book. Um, I presume that means simple things like blocking numbers and blocking emails and stuff. But like, was it tough or is it tough to figure out how to actually literally do that? Because it's a big task.
Yeah, I mean, it's for us, um, it really simply, it's not as if they can't contact us. They can write us a letter.
Okay.
They can,
Yeah, it's not like you moved. I guess that's true.
yeah, no, they have my address.
Mm-hmm.
They could reach out to someone else,
Mm-hmm.
that's not blocked. So it's not as if they can't, there's no way to reach us. I think they have not tried to reach us.
Yeah.
But with email, you can't actually block someone. It goes to your spam.
Okay.
And for at least over a year, Christine and I both checked our spam every week,
Mm-hmm.
even though we were, blocked them,
Mm-hmm.
just to make sure, and they never actually, and I think in some ways the irony is that they blocked us and
Mm.
we think that we blocked them, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
I wasn't thinking about that.
now the phone, you can block someone.
Right.
So, and really to me, that was a more of a protective mechanism because my mother would drink and text and call.
Yeah.
And so I did not want to receive anything that came from that kind of unconscious place.
Mm-hmm.
If I was sent, a letter, uh, I'd certainly honor that by reading it and see what it says.
Mm-hmm.
But I just didn't want any middle of the night drunk
Right.
texts.
Yeah. Um, I'm just like I'm sort of flabbergasted that there were no emails in there. Um,
Right?
it's
It's
just
kind of wild.
surprising. It is kind of wild. So is the last, I might be misremembering the end of the book, and I mean, as you say, it's been a while since you read it, but is the last actual like text message you've received from your dad the snake text?
That's the last message I received.
Yeah. So I mean so you get this like crazy message with a picture of a snake that seems so off and just so odd. And it came after months. I mean, for context, it came after months of virtual silence because of all the tension and the drama that had happened recently. And then out of nowhere, you get this text, and neither of you responded. That's right, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So that's the last message, and it's huh.
I know. Um,
Sorry to be at a loss for words, but it's just like this text that you'll never, or at least for now, you don't have the decoding of like what you'll never really know. Like what was the purpose of that? It's such an interesting moment in the story.
well, I think I know what the purpose is,
Mm-hmm.
and in some ways it's kind of heartbreaking to me too,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that was my dad's version of what he normally would be doing, which is, hey, can we all forget about this and move on?
Right.
But it was just so creepy and ill executed, let's say. Because I think the intention behind it was like, hey, there was a snake in our house.
Yeah.
You know, let's all look over here and forget about all this other stuff.
Right.
But it ended up being so disturbing because, like I write in the book, it had its head chopped off and
Yeah.
it was bleeding out on their living room floor. And there's no way that snake got into their house, so it was
Mm-hmm.
placed there. Um, and just yeah, the whole thing was so incredibly odd,
Yeah.
that yeah, they're just how can you even respond to it?
Yeah. Um, so even though you are no contact, though could be contacted by mail and have not been, so essentially still no contact. Um, have you heard from anyone that like they're aware of this book?
No,
Okay. Do you think they are?
I can't imagine that they're not.
Yeah. It's tricky though, right, because like there's been such a wall built up there that for me, like I'd be wondering if they're even aware of it. But at the same time, then the narcissism that you've mentioned many times and is present in the book from her, it's like, of course she knows. I don't know.
I
I
think
w-
she knows.
yeah,
Now, will she ever read it? I I kind of doubt that. I hope
yeah.
not, honestly,
You do
because
hope she doesn't read it.
yeah, I mean the point of the book is not to punish them.
Right.
And I think it would be pretty difficult for either of them to read. So,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to change them. I'm not trying to punish them. I'm just trying to uh, tell my truth,
Yeah.
my something that had kind of been asking of me to be told. So yeah, in a weird way, it's like I just hope they don't. I mean, it's fine if they do, but I'm
Yeah.
not trying to hurt them. Let's put it that way.
Right. Yeah, that is always kind of, I suppose, I guess we can call it risk with publishing something so sort of nakedly personal and forthright and honest, but also honest about a traumatic experience. Um, I guess it's possible that it could happen, but like you say, it's also not really that's not really it's not your point here either, is to have them read it.
No.
Like, it don't, I don't mean to sound flippant, but it is almost like, who cares if they read it, you know? Because it was for you.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I care. If there's any source of stress in my life, that's at the top of the list.
Right.
Um, Simply because I do care so much.
Yeah, well, because you
Um,
love them.
yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah. I mean, it's so tricky. It's so
Yeah,
difficult. I
it
mean,
really is.
I know I'm preaching to the choir, but it's just because you reveal a lot. Um, Not that you need to describe it, but are there things you left out because they were too revealing, or do you think you pretty much got through it all?
I left a lot out.
Okay.
It's kind of there's a great quote from Jeanette Walls, who wrote The Glass Castle, in an
Mm.
interview where someone was asking her about something about her mother and father, and yeah, and what she chose to include in the book, and
Hmm.
yada yada. And she said something that I really relate to now, which is that she's like, I could have included stories that would have made them look better. I could have included stories that would have made them look worse.
Hmm.
But this is what I did. This is what came of this piece. So I think
Right.
that's interesting because yeah, if you're talking about a lifetime, as the writer, you are the curator.
Yep.
And I guess that's all I can say too, is that yeah, I did leave quite a bit out, and some of it would have made them look better, and some of it certainly could have made them look worse.
Yeah.
And so, I don't, you just do the best you can.
Yeah. I mean, you're also not aiming, I would presume, when you sit down to write this, you're not aiming to write 1,000 pages. So
No,
there's
right.
also
And
that.
exactly. I mean, I think what I tried to do was some of these more personal things,
Hmm.
like even though like even a story is a metaphor in some ways, right? Even if you're describing exactly what happened, that's a metaphor. And I think for me, one of those was when I wrote about her and my new dog,
Hmm.
Grim, and when, he didn't like her at first and was growling at her. And then finally, when he warmed up to her, how she had leaned down and smiled for the first time that maybe I'd never ever quite seen her smile like that before. And she said, he loves me. He really loves me.
Yeah.
And it broke my heart.
Hmm.
To me, that was a metaphor for how broken she was, you
Yeah.
know, and that she couldn't receive love from another human being.
Mm.
And so, that to say that there's probably a lot more I could have explored there with her, but I chose to kind of just encapsulate it with that one scene.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's a small moment, but it feels like a bit of a crux. It's a lovely sort of moment of that sort of heartbreaking tenderness, I guess.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, One thing I found myself sort of waiting for, I don't know why, but waiting for that didn't happen. And I'm not sure if it ever happened or could ever happen, but you mentioned early on your mother's sister. I'm forgetting her name right now.
Yes, Vanessa.
Vanessa. I kept wanting to say Veronica, and I knew that was wrong. Um, and you mentioned that your mother had a sort of habit of every so often what you call Xing, which is essentially, I mean, how would you define Xing? Is it sort of a full and total estrangement? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. So when did that happen with her sister? Was it before you were born?
No, it was, I think I was 15.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kept waiting to see if much later in life if she would come back into your life somehow. Did you ever reconnect with her?
I she reached out to me on Facebook
Hmm.
many, many years ago. And at that point, um, I had thought about re-engaging with her,
Mm-hmm.
but I decided not to because I didn't think my mother would approve.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Um,
that fits.
and now I feel like, if she wanted to reach out to me, that's fine. I'm just taking this whole thing one step at a time, and
Yeah,
I don't really feel like emotionally, if that makes sense, like jumping into a stranger's life.
right.
Um, I've got my Uncle Derek, I've got my nephew, who we're kind of like deeply connected now at this point as, let's say, the survivors.
Which nephew?
Gabriel.
Okay.
So
Okay.
he keeps in touch with me and Christine, and he's read the book, and
Hmm. How
he
old is he now?
he's 20. Oh shoot, how old is he? I think he's 25.
I'm quizzing you. He's 25. Okay. Um, I'm forgetting, is he the middle child?
He's the youngest
The
child,
youngest. Okay.
and he's not that featured in the book.
Yeah.
Um, and neither is my older sister's daughter, who I did not get permission from, and I changed her name. And then,
Okay.
of course, Levi's name is changed because he's not able to give permission.
Right. Okay.
So Gabriel was, and he said, "I want my name in this."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah. Was that, did that feel like a sort of a big moment for you to get his permission?
It did.
Yeah.
Um, and he was very moved by the book. And he said it explained a lot about
Hmm.
himself.
Mm-hmm.
And he started going to therapy.
Hmm.
So I think that there was some healing there involved
Yeah.
for him to kind
Yeah.
of be like, oh, it's not just me.
Yeah.
This whole thing was really fucked up.
Yeah. Like, oh, wait. Okay. I get it now.
Yeah, exactly. Because
So,
he's estranged from his mother.
okay. That was kind of going to be my next question. Did she get permission?
No, and her name is changed.
Okay, so that's why I was asking. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, because you are still estranged from her as well, is that correct?
That's correct. I haven't probably spoken to
Okay.
her in over a decade.
Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like there's so much to this book that people can relate to, like despite your personal journey of especially becoming a musician and kind of going on the road, which of course is not something everyone can relate to, but that idea of sort of work and purpose as being something that takes you away from your family for better or worse. Some people their family's fine and they just have to go anyway. But this idea of it becoming this almost tool by which you build a new life for yourself. Um, was there guilt around that in the beginning?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I hid a lot of my accomplishments,
Right.
and my joy of success, from my family. I mean, I shared a lot of it too, but it was almost like there was some kind of intuitive line I
Mm.
knew not to cross,
Hmm.
Um, and so because and so yeah, part of that I think was a fear of isolation from them, and part of it was guilt.
Yeah.
They had no idea what my life was like,
Yeah.
and they didn't ask.
Yeah, that was the other sort of heartbreaking detail was like, because I'm putting myself into their shoes and imagining if I had a child who became this touring musician, right? Like, of course, our most of our natural instincts would be that we'd have so many questions, because it's not something that is that terribly common. It's one of those things that a lot of parents are like, well, it's cute that you think you want to be a musician, but we'll see, you know? Um, and then yeah, to not inquire. I mean, that's a metaphor. That's symbolic right there.
Well, yeah, it is. And, it's interesting as you say that something comes up for me with in that last visit that I went to, where everything happened, or kind
Hmm.
of, beginning of the end. And I don't include this in the book, but there was a moment where my sister and I wanted to get some kind of seafood for, something special we wanted to make for dinner. And so we were talking about going to, I don't remember which grocery store it was, but something in the kind of like 20 minutes away in a bigger town.
Hmm.
And comes out in the family household that my father had never been there,
Hmm.
and that he had always wanted to go. And my mother had not let him.
Okay.
And my mother was very against us going to this grocery store.
Hmm.
And my dad got to go because we're kind of taking over. And he
Right.
gets in the car like he's going to Disneyland, like this is
Yeah.
just. And I was like, this woman is controlling where people go get their groceries.
Yeah.
And the question is why?
Yeah.
What difference does it make? And that's where it just gets really dark.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's almost like, you know, if you think about it, like if she's threatened by him going an extra, 15 minutes to a grocery store, imagine what she thought about her child,
Hmm.
going out in the world and
Yeah.
traveling it alone. It's almost like it's an affront, I think, and that's part of the narcissism piece.
Hmm.
Um, the borderline in narcissism is you're abandoning me,
Yeah. It's
if you
like
get too far.
how much space can you put between us, really?
And they want no space. They want
Right.
total control.
Right. That's so interesting. Just those like little anecdotes that make you like just when you think you've like understood it, there's like another moment that you're like, oh geez, there's another layer.
Right. Yeah, totally. And it's also, it's kind of this interesting thing about being a child of a narcissist and growing up in this kind of toxic, weird family system where
Hmm.
something that seems so normal, oh yeah, I've always wanted to go to this grocery store, he.
Yeah.
Under you kind of pull the veil off of that, and it actually kind of seems quite nefarious.
Yeah.
It's just interesting.
Yeah. Um, was the book, despite digging up everything, was it useful to you to write this book? Did it have a function for you?
At this point, I have to say that the most useful function it's had for me, and perhaps Christine, is that it has kept us out of the abuse.
Mm.
Because I mentioned something in the book called abuse amnesia, which codependents and um, childhood narcissistic abuse survivors struggle with. Abuse amnesia, because your brain really wants to forget.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's trained to forget. You had to in childhood, the
Mm-hmm.
bad, so that you can just get the good. Um, and so I think that, even as far in recovery as I am, I still need I still need that reminder, I still need that thing that will counteract the amnesia
Yeah.
and be like, no, remember this all happened. This
Yeah.
wasn't a movie. This wasn't, these are real things that occurred. And I think my sister and I both need that. We both need that grounding.
Yeah. Yeah. And now this book sort of stands as sort of a document of that.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
it does. I got a message actually yesterday from Instagram, just two words or two sentences from someone. And the second one was, "This book saved my life."
Hmm.
And so in some ways, like, I don't know, I maybe it saved my life, maybe it saved Christine's life. I'm not saying it saved everybody's life, but
Yeah.
or it's not going to save a lot of people's lives, but there's something really powerful in just, I guess, facing the truth of these kind of experiences.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I guess that's a little um self-aggrandizing. It's like, oh, saving everyone's lives. But but it's true. I mean, in the way that the Glass Castle saved my life, the Liars Club saved my life.
Hmm.
They're when I think when you read people's accounts of things that you feel like you're the only one going through it, and you realize you're not alone, it can be profoundly helpful.
Yeah. And I would imagine that's almost an indescribable feeling to have written this book and then have someone tell you that you don't even know that it saved them.
Hmm.
I mean, how amazing and how beautiful that is.
It is. It's very affirming.
Hmm.
And hard to know what to say, I just
Yeah,
want to be
no,
like,
I can,
sorry.
right. I know it's like you want to be like thank you, but also sorry that a lot of stuff happened to you.
Exactly,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
strange,
Yeah, it is strange.
but also ultimately very like you say affirming and moving. Um, well, I don't know. I feel like I could talk about this book for like 5 hours. Um, yeah, like I want to get a physical copy so that I mean I'll go down to my bookstore and get one, but I want to get a physical copy just so I can have it and sort of kind of thumb through it and maybe even and lend it to people because it's I think it's an important book because it like I said it's a topic that I don't think gets discussed a ton, whether in fiction or nonfiction, and I don't think it's not like a musician's memoir, where like you're only gonna like it if you know their work. Um, I think it's something that your being a musician is just it's like a secondary part of this story.
It really is. And that was my intention.
Hmm.
Um, I when I wrote it, uh, I definitely I wanted it to be about something else. I wanted it to be to where, yeah, anyone could have written this
Yeah.
or anyone can read it. Um, and in fact, the my editors at Simon and Schuster made me put quite a bit of the music stuff in. There was
Hmm.
almost none
Mm.
in the draft that I sold. I think there was probably about, a couple paragraphs worth. And they're
Oh
like, no,
wow.
no, no, you got to add, you got to put more of that in there.
I mean, it's a big part of your story, but it's like but a block of this other larger story. So I
Yeah.
kind of get that.
And I think it's interesting just, self-analyzing that in some ways my story felt like it was my mother's story,
Hmm.
and everything that didn't have to do with my mother is not interesting.
Right. But
Um,
the impact is wide.
mhm.
It
Yeah.
makes me think of what I tell my students because I teach seniors in high school and we start senior year with writing basically memoirs, like tiny, tiny memoirs. And a lot of the time we'll get stories about a sick parent or grandparent or a grandparent or whatever who's really inspirational or really upsetting or really moving for some reason, but the story's not about the person, it's about this figure that they're talking about.
Mm,
And we try to
mhm,
tell them where are you in this?
mhm.
And I think that's kind of what you've done here because yes, it's about your mother, but it's certainly not from her perspective
No.
um at all. And you do try your best to explain a little here and there, to humanize, to sympathize, but at the end of the day, you're also very honest about the effect it had on you. Um, and I think that it's a really good example of writing a story that sort of centers around someone besides yourself, but it's shot through you. And I think it
Hmm.
is the whole way through. Even the music stuff, like it supports the larger topics.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of how I decided to pick and choose,
Hmm.
you know, is kind of, yeah, what supported this bigger topic
Yeah.
of, how did we get here,
Yeah.
basically. But it's
Like,
interesting you bring that up of because where are you in this? Because that was one of my editor's notes in the earlier the draft that I sent, that
hmm
whole last quarter of the book, that is, you said, kind of the scariest part where Christine is at my parents' house. She was like, "Where are you in this?" Because all of that was happening to Christine.
right.
I,
Exactly.
I was in the desert,
Yeah.
just getting the information, and so I had to actually go back in and rewrite that
Yeah.
from my perspective, and it also made me realize that I was not, I was dissociated and kind of living through Christine at that time.
Right. For
Like
sure.
I didn't even really remember what I was doing with my life for that whole
No,
month.
no, and you get that from those passages. It's consuming.
Utterly consuming.
Yeah. Um, quickly before we head out, one thing I know I told you an Instagram message the other day was how reading this book, I feel like it's recontextualized a lot of your music.
Mhm.
And I think you said something like, yeah, for me too. Um, were there any older songs of yours that now you would go back and you're like, okay, that's what this is actually about? Like, have you experienced that now?
Um, yeah, I mean, yes, but I also, um, the shock wasn't necessarily that,
Mm,
but really how many songs
right.
were directly or indirectly about, I think, uh, just being a survivor or victim of narcissistic abuse.
Hmm.
Um, and how that kind of colors your lens of
Hmm.
life. It's almost like it breaks your heart right from the beginning.
Hmm.
So you're kind of in this brokenhearted spirit, and I think that's what really kind of, when I went back through and put a playlist together for the book, I was kind of shocked, yeah, by the sheer amount of my songs that were like, yeah, kind of metaphorically expressing that pain and that feeling of loss and hopelessness.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you hear it from the first Azure Ray record kind of all the way through, up to now. I mean, with Blue Dream, it was written largely in response to losing Wilson, but there's still, there's remnants of it in there. Um, and it's been interesting for me as someone who I know when I spoke with you and Maria a few years ago, I was talking about how I've been listening to you guys for a very long time, and it was sort of embarrassing. Um, but as someone who has listened to Azure Ray and both of your solo careers quite a bit, has been really interesting to be like, oh wow, okay, I get it now. Or like I said with Easter Island, those concrete details that I assumed were strictly metaphor,
Right. Yeah,
and now I'm like, oh shit, okay.
totally. And even like, so I was just thinking about like the song Rise off
Mm,
that first record. And that's
mm-hmm,
like a love lost song, that's about a
mm-hmm,
romantic partnership. But when you look at the lyrics, like don't ask me to rise, I'll lose you when I'm high.
Yeah.
That also, I mean, that explains narcissistic abuse in a nutshell,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what the narcissist does. They bring you into the world and, boost you, make you feel like you're part of this something special, and then they rip the rug out from under you.
Yeah.
So just little things like that. I'm like, oh wow, it's like, we all see like I said, you see the world through a certain lens, with a heartbreak or whatever you go through. But it just seems like mine, when I pull out those songs, I'm like, oh, this is very, very, very specifically describing a pattern that I had kind of emotionally grown up with.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned in the book a few times, like your friends growing up, a lot of them didn't get clued into a lot of what you were dealing with. Even in adulthood, a lot of people didn't get clued into what you were dealing with or had dealt with. Um, but since you were sort of writing about it, was Maria in tune with it?
Um, for the most part, but
Okay.
I think that she knew me for so long that
Yeah.
it almost was like she was where I am, where it kind of seemed normal, or
Yeah.
like Orenda's crazy mom.
Right, right.
Um, and so, yeah, and I think really, honestly, probably only my sister and Uncle Derek, from just kind of my instinctual feeling, are probably the only people who truly kind of understand.
Yeah.
Um, it's just, and I don't know, maybe there's other survivors that understand. I guess that's the thing.
Right.
Some of these messages that I'm getting.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. So there's a book called Forager, Field Notes for Surviving a Family Cult,
Hmm.
by this woman named Michelle Dowd. And she we connected through Instagram, because we have kind of similar memoirs.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been texting, we've had this text friendship, and wow, her book's incredible. You should definitely read it.
Yeah.
Really powerful and beautiful. And she suffered a lot of abuse. But one of the things that she texted me as we were just kind of texting, she was like, I'm curious, the same question you just asked. Were the people close to you surprised
Mm.
when they read the book? And I
Yeah.
said, almost everyone.
Yeah.
And she said, me too.
And isn't that amazing?
Isn't it?
Yeah. Because it's like it's something that is so like once you go back over it and you're writing this book and you realize and you dig up all this stuff and then get confronted with the reality that everyone's going to be surprised by this, you're like, how in the world? But it also makes total sense.
Well, I mean, yeah, because several times people were like, I had no idea. I was like, you didn't. I was like, well, you weren't listening every time I got drunk on tequila.
Right. Right.
I've been screaming this from the rooftops. No, just kidding.
Yeah. But maybe it's that sort of brain chemistry thing. We don't take it seriously, or we think people are exaggerating or even joking, or we forget willfully or unwillfully. And so then you release a book like this and everyone's like, wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's true. And okay,
It's
and I'll tell you
interesting.
one last little funny story about that that also came up, which is that my friend John Sortland from the Shins, who I mentioned that was out in the desert,
Mm-hmm.
he was there when I got the snake text, he and
Mm.
his girlfriend. And he read the book, and he was talking to me specifically about that and how surreal it was for him to read about it.
Yeah.
And then read the whole book and then get to that point where he was there, and he said, yeah, I remember being there and that happening and seeing how visibly shaken you were, but having absolutely no context for why
Yeah.
this was what it was. And he's like, and I feel bad now.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I mean, how could I sit there and tell you, like a lifetime worth of stuff to explain why this text was so disturbing?
Yeah.
And I think that is what it's like to be in these family systems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it's like I don't do you want me to do you have 7 years for me to explain all this to you right now? Like so yeah, I would imagine it would be sort of surreal to be one of those people in the story around you when stuff happened, but unaware of the full extent of it. And then to read
Hmm.
this and be like, wow, that's what was actually going on in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, I can't literally relate. I've never written a memoir, but I can imagine the trippy surreality of that, of writing about something that really happened with actual people, some of whom are still very much so in your life. And now it's out in the world and you're like, yep, that's the story. That's what I haven't ever actually fully explained. Like, here it is.
Yeah, it's strange, but it's kind of like everything else. I mean,
Mm,
I said like it was kind of wild at first, and now it's
hmm.
just like it's kind of just like it never happened.
Yeah.
I mean, people do move on with their lives, and
Yeah.
they may have a feeling about it one way or the other, but it's
Yeah.
ultimately it's a work. It's pushed out, and it has
Hmm.
its own life, and now everything else just kind of goes back to normal.
Yeah. What is normal for you these days?
I'm coaching a lot. I love it.
Mm,
And I'm working on a specific narcissistic abuse recovery program.
okay.
Trying to figure out what's next for writing because I love it. I want to keep writing.
Yeah. Would you ever write fiction or do you think you'd stay in nonfiction?
I'd love to write fiction. So that's a big
Mm,
kind of like crossroads where I'm trying to figure out what that
hmm.
looks like. And um, so yeah, that's definitely my next project because I'm like, I think I'm good on memoir for a while.
Yeah. I think you did that.
Yeah, I'm like, can nothing ever happen to me again, please?
Yeah, really.
Um,
I would love that for you.
thank you.
All
Um,
right. So, The Witch's Daughter uh is out now. It came out back in August. I'm so happy um that it's out and that it's doing well and that people are responding to it. You never know what's going to happen when you publish something, let alone something so personal. So I'm glad people are responding to it.
well, thank you so much. And
Yeah.
thanks for this really insightful and kind conversation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you and all you do. So thank you for agreeing to come hang out.
Anytime.
Of course. All right. Thank you, Orenda.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Bye bye.